With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has had talks with his Mozambican counterpart, Mr. Filipe Jacinto Nyusi, who is on a working and friendship visit to Algeria. The ad hoc high-level working group devoted to preparations for the 7th summit of the gas exporting countries, GECF, kicked off today here in Algiers ahead of the launch on Saturday of the forum's heads of state and government meeting. The headquarters of the GECF Gas Research Institute, located at the Ministry of Energy and Mines, will be inaugurated later today. And as the EU Parliament has called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the Palestinian presidency condemned as an odious massacre the killing by the Israeli soldiers of over 70 Palestinians who were queuing to receive aid west of the town of Gaza. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, today had talks with his Mozambican counterpart, Mr. Filipe Jacinto Nyusi, at the headquarters of the Presidency of the Republic. Earlier, the two presidents listened to the national anthems of the two countries and paid tribute to the various detachments of the National People's Army. The President of Mozambique had visited the Martyrs Sanctuary in Algiers, where he laid a wreath in front of the commemorative stele and observed a minute of silence in memory of the martyrs of the glorious war of national liberation. He also visited the National Museum of the Mujahid, where he received explanations on the various stages of the Algerian history, including the glorious war of national liberation. The President of Mozambique is on a working visit to Algeria at the invitation of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune. The visit, which is part of the process of strengthening historical ties of fraternity and solidarity, uniting Algeria and Mozambique, comes on the eve of the participation of the President Filipe Jacinto Nyusi in the 7th Summit of Heads of State and Government of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum. Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi chaired Wednesday a government meeting devoted to monitoring progress in the digitization of several sectors, draft executive decrees, and a communication on the relaunch of the National Agency for the Support and Development of Entrepreneurship, according to a press release issued by the Prime Minister's office. Mauritania's Minister of Petroleum, Mines and Energy and spokesman for the Mauritanian government, Nani Ould Chrouga, has said that the debates at the 7th Summit of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, GECF, held in Algiers, will chart the right course towards a secure, sustainable and competitive energy future. Said Bouazi has more details in this report.
In an interview with APS Mauritania's Minister of Petroleum, Mines and Energy and spokesman for the Mauritanian government, Nani Ould Chrouga, said that Algeria is a major economic power when it comes to gas and is one of the leaders in the production of hydrocarbons, underlining that his country plans to develop this natural wealth, strengthen the areas of cooperation with Algeria, and raise them to the level of the aspirations of the leaders of the two countries, namely the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, and his Mauritanian counterpart, Mohamed Ould Sheikh El Ghazouani. Algeria has always been there, lending a helping hand in terms of technical support, investment and improved expertise, said the minister, affirming that security and stability in the region contribute to the revival of energy markets in both Algeria and Mauritania, notably in the light of cooperation, the exchange of expertise and the transmission of technology and data. Another point raised by the Mauritanian minister was the importance of this summit that Algeria, a sister country, is hosting in view of its considerable experience in the field of gas and the potential and expertise that it enjoys to develop it, adding, "We hope to benefit from Algeria's experience." Algeria will play a pivotal role in the success of this summit, which will have positive results for the forum as a whole and for Mauritania in particular in its capacity as an observer country that recently joined the GECF, he continued. In addition, the minister considers that the Algiers summit has a further importance given the world leaders in natural gas production that it brings together, recalling that the forum currently comprises 19 states, including 12 member states.
The ad hoc high-level working group dedicated to preparations for the summit of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum GECF kicked off its meeting today at the Abdelatif Rahal International Conference Center to prepare the draft Algiers Declaration, which will be submitted on Friday to the extraordinary ministerial meeting for consideration to be adopted on Saturday by the summit of heads of state and government of the forum. At the GECF extraordinary ministerial meeting, the energy ministers will discuss the final version of the Algiers Declaration and related resolutions to be approved by the forum's heads of state and government at the summit, to be chaired by the President of the Republic, Ms. Abdelmajid Tebboune. A ceremony to inaugurate the headquarters of the GECF Gas Research Institute, located in the Tower B of the Ministry of Energy and Mines in Algiers, will take place in the afternoon. This institute will serve as an innovation and research center dedicated to improving gas-related technologies. Also in the afternoon, at the CIC, the forum's flagship publication, The Global Gas Outlook, in its 8th edition, will be presented in the presence of gas industry professionals, academics and representatives of the national and foreign media. The European energy expert Thierry Bros has affirmed that Algeria has sufficient capacity to increase its natural gas exports, notably by turning to electricity production from solar energy instead of gas, underlining that the current developments in the world energy markets reinforce the importance of the 7th Summit of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum GECF, to be held in Algiers from 29 February to March 2nd. In a statement to the APS news agency, the European expert highlighted Algeria's advantages in terms of exporting gas by pipeline or liquefied natural gas, adding that Algerian gas accounted for a significant proportion of European gas imports. On the occasion of the 7th Gas Exporting Countries Forum, starting today here in Algiers at the Abdelatif Rahal International Conference Center, the senior editor of the Bulgarian news agency stressed that this summit meeting could make the tendencies for gas exporting and exporter countries change. Asya Bakar from the Abdelatif International Conference Center, who is our special envoy to the event, had this report.
The proceedings of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum have kicked off in the International Conference Center here in Algiers with a high-level meeting of the Specialized Working Group on the preparations for the summit to be held on Saturday. The participating delegations have arrived in the center to tackle issues and topics related to the gas market amid the current challenges facing the latter. Speaking about the importance of reliable and stable gas markets for Europe, Bulgarian journalist and senior editor at the Bulgarian press service, Svetoslav Stefanov, had this to say.
Gas can be helpful to make the transition smoother, because otherwise, if we immediately stop all traditional fossil fuel energies and start to do everything green, it will be problems and crises. So let's say in several decades, maybe 2-3, gas will be useful. After that, it's a fossil fuel too. It has to be forgotten. But in, let's say, 20-30 years, no less.
Javaid Osama, journalist at Al Jazeera, for his part, shed light on the privilege offered by Algeria as a gas exporting country thanks to her geographical position and stable and reliable market.
For Europe, this summit may show whether Europe can actually rely on stable distribution of gas in the near future, because Europe has good relations with some of these countries that are members of this group, but not all of them. So in this summit, it somehow has to be shown that Europe, well, I'm European, I'm talking from European perspective, Europe can rely on stable gas import from countries, not only Algeria, because from Algeria gas distribution is stable and safe, but from other countries from this group, like for example, Qatar.
Expectations regarding the gas summit are high as many experts consider it an opportunity to hold discussions that benefit both exporting and consuming countries, and the eyes are turned toward the Algiers declaration to be made on Saturday and the newness it brings to the gas market.
Algeria's ambassador to the UN, Ammar Ben Jama'a, has stressed the importance of regional and international cooperation in this fight against the scourge of terrorism, drawing on Algeria's experience in this field. Mr. Ben Jama'a made the statement during a public meeting held on Wednesday in New York devoted to the implementation by the states of Southeastern Europe of the relevant Security Council resolutions and the committee's recommendations. Algeria has renewed its commitment to defend the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people, calling on the international community to redouble efforts to stop the Zionist occupation aggression against the Gaza Strip, and the donor countries that froze their financial contributions to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, to reverse this decision to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people. The permanent representative of Algeria to the United Nations Office and international organizations in Geneva, Rachid Beldahan, said in an address he delivered at the site event organized by the permanent mission of the State of Palestine in Geneva on the sidelines of the 55th session of the Human Rights Council, denounced the heinous practices carried out by the brutal Israeli occupier against the defenseless Palestinian people, the double standards used by some parties, and the impunity granted to the Zionist occupier. Let's listen to him.
The barbaric practices committed by the heinous Zionist occupier against the defenseless Palestinian people by ignoring all UN resolutions and international laws, including the resolutions of the international humanitarian law, require a swift action from the international community to deter this arrogance, encouraged by the double standards policy adopted by some parties. This unjust immunity granted to this occupying entity and its non-accountability and non-punishment for the crimes it is committed pushed it to continue its aggression and tyranny at a time when several parties are endeavoring to reach a ceasefire and the bloodshed and deliver humanitarian aid to assist civilians.
Meanwhile, Beldahan reiterated Algeria's call on the international group to redouble efforts to stop this attack and confirms its full support for granting the State of Palestine full membership in the United Nations, a demand that the non-aligned movement supported at its recent summit held in Kampala. To the Middle East now, where as the European Parliament called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the Palestinian presidency condemned as an odious massacre the killing by the Israeli soldiers for over 70 Palestinians who were queuing to receive aid west of the town of Gaza. The Palestinian presidency was quoted by the news agency Wafa as saying that hundreds of others were wounded in the attack. It said it held the Israeli government fully responsible, stressing that the Israeli occupier must account for the genocide carried out against the Palestinian people before international tribunals. The Palestinian presidency described today's attack as part of the series of crimes perpetrated by the Israeli occupier against the Palestinians since last October, which claimed over 30,000 lives. The Israeli soldiers stationed in the area opened fire at thousands of Palestinians waiting in Beit Hanun and Jabalia, north of Gaza, for the aid-laden lorries. This came as 50 members of the U.S. Congress urged for a total financing of UNRWA in order to provide an emergency aid to the population in Gaza. Earlier, the Palestinian Foreign Ministry Minister Riyad al-Maliki called on the UN Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, to rapidly send an international panel to Palestine to shed light on Israel's crimes. And today's national press paid a great interest to the 7th summit of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, GECF, starting today in Algiers, underlining its importance of this summit, or the importance of the summit for gas exporting countries within a context marked by a reconfiguration and restructuring of the gas market. Saeed Bougazi has more details in this report.
The El Mujahid daily newspaper devoted its front page to the event under the title "The World Focused on Algiers." It published an interview with the Russian Federation's Energy Minister Nikolai Chulginov, in which he reiterated his country's will to achieve a reasonable energy balance. The newspaper also published an interview with the CEO of Sonatrach, Rashid Hashishi, who affirmed that Algeria has colossal gas assets. The head of the National Hydrocarbons Group also said that the 7th GECF summit would enable Algeria to consolidate its relations with the other exporting countries and to achieve market stability between customers and suppliers in the short, medium, and long terms. The Horizon newspaper, which devoted its front page to the GECF summit, described the event as a major moment for the gas market and gave the floor to the expert Mohamed Ashir, who argued that the summit would provide an opportunity to draw up a new strategic roadmap in the medium and long terms among the producing countries. Horizon pointed out that substantial logistical and organizational resources have been mobilized to ensure the success of the 7th GECF summit. The daily El Watan, which also devoted its front page to the summit, ran the following headline: "Securing the future of gas," considered the event crucial for gas exporting countries and stated that the summit, which opened today at the Abdellatif Rahal International Convention Center, would be an opportunity to defend the common interests and safeguard the future of gas. Le Soir d'Algérie daily newspaper believes that the 7th GECF summit will make of Algiers the gas capital of the world, noting that the forum's member countries are meeting within a context marked by a reconfiguration of the gas market. Le Quotidien d'Oran newspaper, for its part, believes that the 7th GECF summit is a meeting that extends the COP28 debate. Oil economist Ragis Rabah, writing in the columns of this newspaper, stated that it was unlikely that the issue of a fair price will be addressed at the summit because it is divisive. In an article entitled Algiers Declaration, Decisive Decisions, the daily Eshab harks back to the considerable resources mobilized to ensure the success of this summit in accordance with the instructions of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune. On this occasion, the newspaper published interviews with several energy experts, including Abdelkarim Azib, who stressed that Algiers' hosting of this summit would enable the country to consolidate its position as a pivotal country in the production and export of gas, as well as in the energy industry. The expert Ahmed Tartar said that this summit was an opportunity to take advantage of Algeria's expertise in reconciling views and to draw up the main lines of a clear strategy that will enable the maintaining of gas supplies. The daily El Khabar, which devoted a special report to the event, highlighted the sensitive context in which the summit is being held, stating that this new edition of the GECF will highlight the weight of the member countries and send out a message about the importance of gas as a clean, safe and secure energy. On this occasion, the newspaper spoke of a number of energy experts, including Mustafa Mekidesh, who said that the 7th GECF summit would bring together the ranks of producing countries to achieve common objectives. The Daily Ash-Shuruq published an interview with European energy expert Thierry Bruce, who argued that Algeria has the capacity to increase its gas supplies, arguing that the Algiers summit is important in view of the current developments on the gas market.
And still with the gas summit file, our colleague and special envoy to the International Conference Center, Abdellatif Rahal in Algiers, Asia Bakar, has been covering the event, and she came back to us with this interview that she held with one of the organizers and participants. So let's listen to this interview, and we'll meet you again tomorrow for first edition of our news bulletin with more coverage on the 7th edition of the gas exporting countries summit held here in Algeria until the 2nd of March.
The 7th summit meeting of the heads of state and government of the gas exporting countries, Algeria 2024. The Algerian radio is ensuring round-the-clock coverage of the Algiers Summit. Special coverage and interviews from several gas-producing and exporting countries will be broadcast by the Algerian radio thanks to its network of correspondents.
محمد بن سلطان مبعوث الإذاعة الجزائرية إلى العاصمة القطرية الدوحة.
سي دكار ثم ناخذ السنغال كريم الحاج محمد وشقعنا راديو ثغنوث.
ذابه هوادف مبعوث الإذاعة الجزائرية إلى العاصمة الموريتانية نواكشوط.
You can follow the event from February 29 to March 2nd on the waves and digital platforms of the Algerian radio.
Hello, dear listeners, and welcome on our waves. Today we are ensuring the coverage of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum Summit meeting here in the International Conference Center in Algiers. And we have with us South African journalist Jean-Jacques Cornish, who is here to tell us about his participation of the summit. Hello, Mr. Cornish.
Hi, good to be here.
Thank you. So could you please give us an overview of the current summit according to your own point of view?
Well, the summit is very important for me. I was disappointed when I was first invited to the summit. When I looked around and spoke to my many clients, I work for an organization that has a number of radio stations, a number of newspapers, a number of websites that I service. And, one would have thought something like this, the OPEC of gas, would be something that would sell itself. People would say, yes, if you're going to be there, I'd love to hear from you, But I had to really explain it to them. And it's, to me, I was told about it and I thought, I won't miss it. The fact is, we with South Africa are at our wits' end about our energy. When we became a democracy, we were selling power to the entire region. And now, 30 years later, we are not able to supply our own energy needs. We have blackouts across the country. In some cases, certainly in my neighborhood, for 8 hours a day, we have no electricity. Now, I remember I've covered African politics. I remember visiting Mozambique after their revolution. And I was the first white South African journalist allowed back into Mozambique after the revolution. And I remember walking around there and there was no power. And I said, how could you work a country with no electricity? Well, now I'm living in a country which has that problem. And it's absolutely parlous. Cyril Ramaphosa, our president, delivered his budget last week and he said we have to, in order to survive effectively, we need to find alternative sources of power. And that is what I'm here to do. Hopefully we will find gas is a sustainable, affordable, alternative source of power. It's not going to provide the same needs as our electricity, but it will be something that we could use that would augment the electricity. And where would we get it? Well, Mozambique is a member of your forum, and they, through Total Energy, are starting to exploit the gas up in Cabo Delgado. And more, I've been told by Algerian officials that I've spoken to, that we're going to quite possibly have an agreement with Algeria to sell. Algeria, of course, is filling the gap that created by Russia's shortfall because of sanctions over the invasion of Ukraine and more sanctions that came over the death of Navalny. And Algeria is trying to fill that gap, as are others. But we have, as I said, 8 African countries in this group, and all of whom provide gas. They will be talking among one another. They will be finding ways that they can make this produce, this particular, this gas, more commercially viable, more transportable to get it around the world, and find new clients, as I would hope South Africa could become.
Mm-hmm. How is the gas market in Africa currently?
Well, we have the members, as I say, of the forum that provide gas. I know in my region, Mozambique and Angola are 2 particular ones. Nigeria, obviously, there, and others. The thing about it is gas is, unless it's brought in by pipeline, is more expensive as liquid natural gas. And expense is really, really important in Africa. we can't afford, or the African countries really struggle to afford sources of energy, sources of anything. So, this is hopefully something here too that we'll be able to talk about, how this can be affordable for Africa.
The Trans-Saharan pipeline that is expected to link Nigeria to Niger, then to Algeria. What do you think this kind of project will bring to Africa? What would Africa benefit from it?
Well, of course, anything that benefits Nigeria, which we argue between the two of us, South Africa and Nigeria, which is the biggest economic power. But some figures give it as Nigeria, some figures give it as South Africa. But anything that benefits Nigeria would benefit the rest of Africa. And Niger, of course, very important. The point is, though, as the gas from Nigeria goes through Algeria into Europe, which would go through to Spain and Italy, that would greatly benefit the west and north of Africa, less so my part of Africa, the southern and eastern part, but nevertheless, the profitability of one is profitability for all.
For you, what are the current challenges facing the gas market in the world?
My understanding is one of the reasons why the Gas Exporting Countries Forum is not able to regulate the price, or doesn't even try to regulate the price, is that the sources of the commodity are so widespread. Natural gas coming out into pipelines to major markets abroad, being made into liquid gas, which is it costs more, and then transported in containers, economically less effective. So that, I think, is the challenge, is the transportation, the fact that much of the gas cannot just be moved by pipeline from one country to another. If that could happen, we'd be in a different world entirely.
Now, what's the role of gas in the energy transition, since gas is a fossil fuel in the end?
Well, exactly that. We're going to have to, if you believe, that we're past midnight in terms of using fossil fuels, then even though gas is cleaner than coal, and certainly cleaner than oil, we're going to have to find alternatives. And, that will have to come from solar, that will have to come from wind, that will have to come from hydro. But for the time being, we have to power our economies. You want to invest in my country, you have to know that you can build a factory and make what you want to make, or factories and make what you want to make, and that I have the power to provide you for that. And that's not the case in many of the African countries. Now, if gas can step in and fill some of those gaps, good, all good and well.
How do exporting and consuming countries benefit from the fact that gas will still be needed by 2030?
Well, the resources are great, and it's any commodity you have which is saleable, commercially viable, and therefore the long term will benefit you in the longer term. If you can keep selling it, people want it, and you have it, all to the good.
So now, since we spoke about the energy transition and the role of gas in this transition, how far or close you think is Africa from the 7th Sustainable Development Goal, which is affordable and clean energy?
I think still uncomfortably not close enough. And as I've been saying, until you have the energy, the required energy, you can't ask people to invest in your country and wait for it. And until you get that, the investment, which is absolutely vital for the survival of all of our countries in Africa. Our growth rate is below 1%. Well, we need about 3% in order to grow to a level, or at a level at which we can feed our people. We're nowhere near that. And with these power cuts that we're having now, we can't say to anybody, please invest or come and invest in our country, because it's just unattractive.
So now to wrap up our interview, what do you expect as a journalist from the Algiers Declaration to be made on the third day of the summit?
Well, I don't know what that declaration is. I know that the officials that flew here had the declaration in their pocket. People don't come to a summit like this.
Any expectation?
Well, my expectation is that new markets will be identified new markets, and I'm hoping that my country can become one of those, that agreements can be made with Mozambique, with Algeria specifically in my case, to buy gas from both of you.
Thank you so much, Mr. John Jack Cornish. Let's recall that you are a South African journalist.
Thank you.